in a cool. I can tell it every single. After a lifetime of crime, this horrible individual is finally found guilty in York, and they hang him on the race course. And they used to hang people on the same day they held the races, so you could get 2 types of entertainment for the price of 1. And when they know he's very, 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 very dead, they start to cut him down, and this is true. And as he's being cut down, the hangman is approached by the landlord of the Blue Boar Inn, still a working pub. And the landlord says to the hangman, well, not everybody could get the day off to see him hang, to see him swing. Why don't I put his half-naked, rotten corpse on display in the cool cellar of my lovely pub? So, without further delay, Dick Turpin's body is wheeled all the way down Castlegate, downstairs in the cellar. It is propped up there, propped up against some boxes of Georgian pickled onion monster munch. There he is. People pay a penny. Depending on how they feel about Dick Turpin, they can go down those stairs, they can stroke his hair, they can kiss him, they can hold him. If they feel differently, they can punch him, kick him, give him a Chinese burn. Anywhere they like. Now, the constables say you've turned it into a freak show, a sideshow. We must bury him, so they take him to St George's, down Warmgate, and they bury him in unconsecrated ground outside the main graveyard. But even then, Dick Turpin is only allowed a few hours rest in the earth before coming along just after midnight, a grave-robbing doctor with his 4 resurrectionist friends, because they dig him up. They wheel him all the way down to Dr. Marmaduke Palms's house. They shove Turpin's body in the greenhouse with the cucumbers, the courgettes, the tomatoes, with a view to chopping him up the next day along with a nice salad. Now again, the constables hear about the commotion, but before they can get to Dr. Palms's house, the locals have found out. They've gone down there, they've dragged his body out of the greenhouse, they've laid it on a cart. There they are, wheeling him around the city. Thousands of locals are out trying to get a lock of his hair. Eventually, Dick Turpin is reburied in quicklime at St George's. But because of the haste with which Dick Turpin was cut down in pursuit of a quick buck, this means his body was never shown any respect whatsoever. It was never washed. It was never cleansed. And as for his soul, no prayers were ever said for it. And it wasn't allowed proper time to ascend or to descend anywhere. And then, of course, his rotten, stinking corpse is taken on a magical mystery tour. In and out of pubs, greenhouses, Nando's. Whatever was around in 1739 that would make them some money. So this means his spirit, his soul, will never ever be at peace, never be at rest. So the 4 places I would like you to meet him tonight after you have imbibed: graveyard of St George's, cellar of the Blue Boar Inn, the condemned cell, but best of all, just by that side of the river, take a wander. Tonight, after midnight, listen out for the hooves of that horse. And if you do hear them, get ready to run. Well done, everybody. Get in. This is where top man and myself is now. They would come down, and according to them, they would open up the body shop. And inside, absolute mayhem and chaos. Shampoo, conditioner, moisturiser, cleanser squirted everywhere. Bath bombs that exploded of their own accord. The walls and the ceiling smeared with coconut body butter. So they would clean up. It would take an age. They would go home a few hours later and do exactly the same thing. It took weeks, months, years for things to start settling down in the body shop and all the other shops here. Now, 2 years previous to this, when it was just a building site in this area, the archaeologists of York had descended in their thousands. During their digging, they unearthed hundreds of Viking relics, bits of skulls, skeletons, remains. So maybe at the point of their disturbance, all these Viking phantoms finally released into the atmosphere to cause this very same mayhem and chaos. So it could be the work of the Vikings. Or it could be the work of 2 other malevolent, evil spirits who haunt the Coppergate Centre. Now, this next thing, this happened in and around lots of churches in this country during the same period. It definitely happened at St Saviour's Church, just beyond Miss Selfridge there, and we've been told 2 or 3 stories with regard it happening here. Now, according to these stories, not long after St Mary's was just opened, A very awkward, obstinate, argumentative pagan gentleman who wouldn't open his heart to the new ways of Christianity. Well, he was nailed to the church doors and skinned alive very slowly by some over-enthusiastic Christians. So he did end up opening his heart, just in an entirely different way. Now, in the last few seconds of his life, he cried out the most horrendous curse on everybody and everything here and vowed he would return in some form or another to seek his revenge. So it could be the awkward pagan gentleman causing the problems. Or it could be somebody else around the corner in the 1600s. Before the sports bars, before the hotels in the 1600s, lots of little old cottages. In one of the little old cottages, a supposedly sweet little old lady. And she makes the mistake of taking on and looking after a dead relative's black cat. Instantly, the feeble-minded, superstitious local people who never ventured beyond the bar walls come to the conclusion, old lady living on her own, black cat, she must be a witch. There is a trial, and unsurprisingly, as they always were, she's found guilty. Now, if you read about the real facts about these witch drownings, decapitations, burnings, it's like a carnival. They have food stalls, dancing, music, puppet shows, and then they kill the witch, don't they? Anyway, they tie her to a stake as the flames lap. Haggard old body. She also cries out the most horrendous curse and vows she will return as a ghost to seek her revenge. So it could be the witch. So the copper gets sent with its witches, its awkward pagan and its Vikings, just like the rest of York on the surface, lovely wine bars, galleries, museums, churches, but it's all built on a foundation of blood, slaughter, butchery and ignorance. They really are. For hundreds of years, the gates came down at the bar walls. They were locked. The keys were handed to the Lord Mayor. For all those hundreds of years, very few people were allowed out, but even fewer people were allowed in. So the gene pool smaller and smaller. You're almost into deliverance country in this part of the city. Now, untold horrors took place within these walls, unchecked by the outside world. Even the Catholic martyr, Saint Margaret Clitheroe, they stripped her naked, they buried her, they squashed her in that huge door. They threw a dead naked body on a rubbish heap. When Queen Elizabeth I found out, she said, how could the people of York have done that to a woman? Well, they could, because the York people, and York people have always been very, very good at such things. They're professionals. That's why you're here. All this history, all these ghosts, coming about because of bloodshed, differences of opinion. A lovely ghost story for the little children. So we need a volunteer.
Come on, you're Gryffindor.
Come on. I'm volunteering.
She's like, no. No, Mom.
Somebody.
She's like,
Nah. Well done. Stay there. Don't go anywhere. Right. York isn't just famous for smelly, violent Vikings. Yeah? It's not just famous for them. It's not just famous for Romans and ghosts. It's also famous for chocolate. So amongst the things invented here, Smarties, Kit Kat, Terry's All Gold, Terry's Chocolate, Orange Craven stuff, hundreds of things, all invented here. Now in the 1890s down there, every other shop, a sweet shop or confectioner of some kind, and the one on the corner, all day, every day, gangs of little children running in and out, trying to nab something, grab something, steal something. Yeah, maybe a little bit of fudge or toffee, maybe just a lick of golden syrup in amongst one of the gangs. Sweet little 5-year-old girl, Elizabeth. Long blonde curly hair. Oh, that's a dye. Blue eyes. She's always in that sweet shop. She's always annoying the sweet shop. And he always keeps saying, here, take this bag of sweets and get out. And one day, this constant annoyance disappears. She's gone. Yeah, no sight, no sound of the little girl. Her parents are frantic with worry. The constables, they search every building. No sign of her. No suspects. Apart from one man, Robert, who had been a stonemason at York Minster. And one lunchtime, Robert had gone for his lunch at the pub. Drank far too much strong beer. Gone back up the scaffolding, slipped on his cheese and pickle sandwich. Went flying off that scaffolding, landed on the ground below. No physical damage. But after the accident, all Robert could do was stand outside that very same sweet shop all day, every day, just looking up at the sky and pointing. And after his accident, he could only remember one word, which was happily for the police, yes! So they take him in for questioning, don't they? There's no other suspect, no other leads. They ask him, were you standing outside the sweet spot Friday afternoon? Yes. Did you see the children running in and out? Yes. Did you see the little girl? Yes. Did you murder the little girl? Did you kill the little girl and chop her up into little pieces so nobody can find her? Yes. He answers yes to every question put to him by the judge. The last thing he says before the noose around his neck is, yes. He's dead. They think they've got the guilty man. 6 months later, they're doing a stock take inside that sweet shop. They're checking the toffee, the fudge, the big jars of bonbons and giant strawberries. Finally, oh, little baby.
It just fell from somewhere.
I think he came out of the net somewhere.
I don't want to spook his family. They couldn't.
His mum's over there in the corner.
So we'll reconvene here, and hopefully his mum or dad will sort him out short. Okay. Finally, they check the large barrel of golden syrup in that sweet shop. Now this barrel is over 7 feet high. The sweet shop man needs very long ladders to get to the top. He reaches down with his pewter jug. 2/3 the way down inside that barrel, he hits something very, very hard. Drops the jug, feels round with his hand, feels a little sticky, hairy little head. Just to make doubly sure, swirls round with his finger inside the barrel, round and round in that syrup, sticks it in. When he pulls it out, he's got a little eyeball stuck on the end of his finger. Now they turn the barrel over, and what was once golden syrup is now this horrible black goo, full of bits of nose and toes and skin. And in amongst this black goo, the crystallised, emaciated body of that little girl. She'd been in there 6 months. Now not only had an innocent man been hung, those 6 months, every bakery down there, every restaurant, cafe, their source of sugar for all their blueberry muffins, treacle tarts, sweet treats of any kind had come from that barrel of golden syrup. So unknowingly, the locals had been eating little bits of little girl all that time. So, if you eat in York, anywhere, check the provenance, check the ingredients of every single thing on your plate. Because once the people of York get a taste for something, they don't like to give it up. Now they ask her friends, how did she end up in the barrel? And they say, well, we just wanted some golden syrup, we lifted Elizabeth up, we had the sweet shop manager, we ran, she fell in the barrel, she drowned in the barrel, she'd been in there 6 months. Now, since then, outside the site of that old sweet shop late at night, people have sometimes heard this very sweet singing. Very quiet singing. Very quiet singing. And in the distance, they see this little girl dancing round and round and round. From a distance, she looks okay. But as you get closer, you can see that she's in fact very, very dead. And when you get right up against her, you see that one of her eyeballs is missing. That's the ghost of the little girl. So listen out, watch it. Round of applause. But before that, I need to tell you the story of why it is the best place to get spooked. So if you're going to visit a haunted building while you're in York, you're interested in ghosts, you must visit the Golden Fleece. But if you want to come outside to somewhere that's haunted, then you must come here after that. This is Bedham. Or Bedham, in place of prayer. Around that corner, 1847 to 1855, York Ragged Industrial School. A school for orphans, waifs and strays, children with no families, no homes, no hope, no nothing. So the church employ a genuine demon, evil headmaster, a man called Mr. George Pym, and they pay him per child. To house them, feed them, clothe them, educate them. He doesn't spend one penny, not one groat, on any of these children. Come in a bit closer, everybody. He even makes more money out of them by hiring them out in the city to market stall holders and, worst of all, chimney sweeps. So it doesn't take long, under his so-called care and supervision, for many of these children to go very sick, and then for some of them to drop down dead. At that point, Mr. Pym should have told the church and the authorities. He doesn't. He likes the money too much. Spend for nice clothes, trips away, nice food, and especially wine. Mr. Pym loves his wine, so he says nothing. Keeps taking the money, pretends the children are still alive. But what's he going to do with the bodies? They started to mount up. Well, in those days, before the stone flags, the paving, the tarmac, in and around this area, it was just an earth floor, easy to dig, easy to bury. So he's out most nights, under cover of the dark, with a shovel and a bag. Sometimes the bag contains up to 3 or 4 dead little bodies, so he buries lots of little children in and around Bedham. And then winter comes round. Harsh, biting weather. Lots of snow, lots of ice. Malnourished and freezing to death, the rest of the children in his so-called care start to drop down dead in their dozens like flies. Now, Mr. Pym has a big problem this time because the earth floor is frozen solid. He cannot dig. So in his ensuing madness and drunkenness, he starts to hide the bodies in the school itself. So some in the attic, some on the floorboards, some in the cellar. Worst of all, there's a genuine written report which says within his living quarters, inside the school, there is a fire always blazing away. Now, we don't know how many dead little children he threw on the fire. He must have done to keep the numbers down. But he definitely put 3 little bodies in a cupboard not too far from the fire. Nailed it shut, carried on drinking wine. Now, spring comes round. Of course, everything in this area starts to warm up. So we're back to blue bottles and flies and fly larvae, maggots. And worst of all, this time round, the sickly sweet smell of rotting human flesh. Which once you get it in your nose, in your nostrils, you can never ever get rid of it. You never forget it. Talk to anybody who's been in combat or talk to funeral directors, people who work in morgues. They will tell you about that smell. Now the locals complain. Because every building is searched. Finally they make it to the school. They go inside. They cannot believe the smell or the state of the children. They go to the source of the strongest smell. They go to Mr. Pym's living quarters. And there he is in his high-back leather chair, drinking wine, drunk, singing, as if nothing is wrong. You see the fire, some dubious bits of material burning on it, little bits of bone and shoes and clothing. And then they find the cupboard, don't they? And the cupboard door is bowed out, it's expanded. The bottom of the cupboard door, according to one report, there are thousands of maggots. Writhing, crawling, falling onto a very expensive rug. Just recently purchased by Mr. Pym with his ill-gotten gains. Because they take a crowbar and they break it open. 3 sticky, bloated, maggot-infested little bodies fall onto that rug, along with all this oozing putrescence and slime. At that point, Mr. Pym, who was well on his way, goes totally insane, crazy, doolally tap. They take him away to Naban Mental Asylum. And I don't want to alarm you even more about the people of York. I know this is a different time, but in those days, within 5 miles of here, 12 lunatic asylums altogether. All was full, including 2 very big ones, the Retreat and Bootham Park. And if you stop and talk to anybody in York, proudly professes to be York born and bred, and look for long enough into their eyes, you will see why there was a need for 12 lunatic asylums in this city. So be on your guard. They'll take your money with a smile, but tonight in the hotel, in the B&B, you'll be drifting off to sleep and you'll start to hear that door handle and they'll have come for your soul. So keep the door locked. 4 months later, in his cell at Naburn Mental Asylum, hearing the voices of the dead children singing and playing and carrying on in his head, he takes his leather belt, wraps it round his neck, hangs himself. Goodbye, cruel world. Now, just briefly, I need to show you now. Second bit. Best place to get spooked, just around this corner. Those buildings there, those new flats and house, that's the site of the school. That's the site of the workhouse. Since Mr. Pym hung himself, hundreds of people have talked about hearing the voices of these dead ghost children in and around the streets, alleyways and ginnels of Bedden. So they say they're singing, they're laughing, they're playing. Even more people talk about feeling these tiny little invisible hands. They seem to reach out, try and grab hold of theirs, looking for some sort of safety, support, maybe escape. And these same little hands that reach out and grab people's bags and coats, and little fingers that tap people on the lower part of their backs because they look round, nothing there. Sometimes, when people hear the children, they say they sound as if they're running very, very quickly. And then they start screaming. This god-awful, ear-splitting scream. And at that point, around the corner, top lamp, this very ghostly figure in black appears, very thin, very tall, very gaunt, dead black eyes. Very Peter Quint in Turn of the Screw. And that's the ghost of Mr. Pym, the headmaster. So if you come back to Bedden and you hear the children and they're playing, they're singing, they're laughing, they're trying to grab hold of your hand, your coat, your bag, they're trying to tap you on the back, you'll be safe. But if you hear them and they start running very, very quickly and then they start screaming, that means Mr. Pym is back. And after Mr. Pym has got hold of the children, he'd probably come and get hold of you. In which case, you better get out of Bedden very, very quickly. So this is the place above all others in York. And the best place to get spooked and be given the creeps is in between those 2 trees there, after midnight. Now, I don't know, maybe it's because more children were buried there, or maybe more children just died on that spot. But I've been here with mediums, spiritualists, anybody with any sort of gift. And that's the place where they start to throw up, they start to gag, they faint, they end up being taken away in ambulances. So please, if you can, later on tonight or tomorrow night, just take a little wander. Stand in between those 2 trees in the right spot. If you get the right spot, those children will try and make contact with you. So please return.